Welcome to a short video introducing esoteric astrology, its overall principles, and how to apply them to your chart and the insights that you might gain from that chart. The subject matter of esoteric astrology comes from the Master DK. It is one of 5 books that cover the depth of esoteric sciences in regards to a human being and the macrocosmic structures of which a human being is a part. It falls in suit with esoteric psychology, esoteric healing, and the path of initiation, to name just a few. And so esoteric astrology, along with those other sciences, is about the energy of being and how to foster it. And with regard to esoteric astrology, how the birth chart or horoscope is pointing us in the direction of consciousness, its evolution, as well as of being. And so in that regard, the Master DK suggests that esoteric astrology is a fundamental reversal of where the importance is usually put. In traditional astrology, the importance is put on the personal life and the development of the personality through its circumstances and events and the conditioning factors of that life. Esoteric astrology wants to flip the paradigm and suggest that we are an incarnated being, that our incarnation is by choice, and that our incarnation is fundamentally not in service to ourselves, but is fundamentally in service to the evolution of the whole of which we are a part. In esoteric astrology, the plot thickens considerably, and there are many layers to that, just as there are many layers to astrology overall. And in order to help us with this complexity, the Master DK states again at the beginning of esoteric astrology that his overall desire is to give both the reader and the astrologer, because whoever reads that book might not be an astrologer, both individuals a truer and thus larger picture or larger view of the currents of energy that are in motion on a consistent basis through cosmos. Those energies are streaming from grand lives on scales that are quite unfathomable to the common human mind. But nonetheless, those energies and those energy qualities affect all individuals, whether that individual is you and I, or something a little bit bigger, like a planet, a nation, the solar system overall, or some other solar system. And so within this total complexity of information, there is a rudimentary or foundational simplicity that is being reported, and it is the simplicity of pure being and its awareness. Now again, astrology as a science is a complex one with many layers, component parts, and the interpretation of astrology is one that is certainly a learned skill, where we learn each part, learn how to put the various parts together, and then keep adding layers of meaning, interpretation, and correspondences. And now with esoteric astrology, we're going to add more. However, it would be very important that the student of astrology not be overwhelmed from the get-go, and there's no reason to. What we will find is that, as has been said in the traditional astrology class, esoteric astrology builds upon the foundation of traditional astrology. So as long as we have that foundation, we're on stable ground to learn the next layers, which are those of esoteric astrology. And that foundation is going to help us with this reversal of importance from the personality life, the development of the personality, to the incarnation as being representative of the intention of our higher nature, the intention of a soul, the intention of pure spirit. One of the background ideas within esoteric astrology, which need not be taken up in detail at all in a class, but is an important background piece of information, is this statement that space is an entity. It was given by the Master DK back in the late 1800s through Helena Blavatsky, and she wrote it in The Secret Doctrine. And then it was restated again through Alice Bailey in this text, Esoteric Astrology, as well as the text, Treatise on Cosmic Fire. But again, although it's quite a macrocosmic statement and one that is possibly impossible to validate, nonetheless, what it is stating is that what esoteric astrology will offer is an itemization of certain of the features, energetic and qualitative, of these, of the attributes, if you will, of this great cosmic being, or at least the cosmic beings that are local to the earth, that affect the earth, and therefore affect a human being on the earth. So again, we need not feel that any detail here has to be learned, but we want to, because this is an esoteric science, have this macrocosmic idea, this as above, so below kind of idea. It is within this greater framework that esoteric astrology finds its path, if you will, and its reason for being. And so, as was said, we will look at the micro, we will look at ourselves, we will look at our horoscope, our birth chart, for how these streams or currents of qualified energy, these attributes of the emanations of the planets, the emanations of the constellations, which we have come to learn through the 12 zodiacal signs, we will come to understand these energies in a way that's not that different from how traditional astrology has already put that information to us. That is to say, we know that Venus means such and such, Mercury means such and such, Aries means something different than Scorpio, etc. What we will add is similar to when you or I learn that we are a being of consciousness, and we start to look at ourselves for the evidence of consciousness, and we start to describe ourselves from that angle of consciousness. And then furthermore, if we were to look at ourselves as a spiritual being, what does that mean? What are the characteristics or features we would try to look for? And then if we could ascertain that, then how do we also ascertain the spiritual nature of the planets and the constellations and the signs, etc.? So let's take a moment and look at some of the features of this bigger picture. There are numerous points here on this slide. Each of them is going to be taken up individually on its own slide. So I'm not going to read through these. But the essence of these enumerations here is the ways in which the picture is going to get bigger within esoteric astrology. The value of enlarging the picture and of reversing what's important, of putting the spiritual nature, the higher nature, as paramount, as the driver of the incarnation over all. The value of that is that it elicits those same qualities from you and I, to conceptually consider these ideas of the great lives that are behind each of the signs, called the constellations. The constellations are what are behind the signs, or that the three crosses represent the three aspects of divinity, the divine triplicity as it is found in all of its presentations, including the Christian presentation, the Indian presentation, etc. To expand into these ideas, these concepts, is to invite the same expansion of ourself. So we will do that by expanding into the concepts and the ideas. But as we come to understand the more of the fullness of Venus, more of the fullness of Taurus, more of the fullness of the cardinal cross, for example, then we will be inviting ourselves, according to our chart and what's forefront in our chart, to those same expanded, refined features of awareness and being. So the first point is that planets themselves are lives, and they are emanating qualities of being. When we learn traditional astrology and we learn, again, Jupiter means this and that, the ways that it affects our life through transit or through the aspects in the chart are through the ways that it expresses in a noun type of a way, as a what. It is humor, it is joy, it is a gift giver. In the ways of an adjective, it brings an exaggeration, it brings a buoyancy, it increases things. I think I just said all verbs, actually. And can make, as an adjective, it can make things enlarged, like to be fat, to be jolly, to be humorous, to be joyful. Those are adjectives. So we learn that kind of list, if you will, of qualities regarding the planets. But nowhere in traditional astrology is there the idea that these qualities that come from the planet are because they are displaying or expressing something particular about the planet itself, that these qualities are qualities of being of the planet. And thus, Jupiter is distinct from Saturn. Saturn is distinct from Venus. Venus is distinct from Mars, etc. The reason they're distinct is not because of some human arbitrary designation, but instead the planets are distinct in the same way that you or I are distinct. We are distinct because of the spiritual nature that we are expressing, demonstrating, and evolving to more fully express. And so within esoteric astrology, the idea, an additional idea, is that there are sacred planets and non-sacred planets. The sacred planets are the ones that are expressing more of the full range of their being, their consciousness, as well as their activity or expressive characters. And non-sacred planets, of which the Earth is one, are still stretching into what planetary awarenesses, what planetary consciousness, planetary being is. And so as we look at the chart and we look for how the planets are placed in the chart, we look to see if they are in a rulership position, etc. It is the qualities of being and the qualities of compassion and wisdom, or the mechanism that the planet provides for the evolution of our spiritual maturing. That's what we will be looking for. The zodiac that we use of the 12 signs is an illusion. It is an illusion from 2 points of view. It only looks as it does from the Earth. If we were on a different planet in the solar system, those constellations, or that which we see as a particular constellation, would look differently, in a different shape, from a different planet in our solar system. From a different planet in the solar system, certain of the aspects of the constellations might actually be indistinguishable or not be able to be seen. So that's one thing. From the Earth is the only location that what we call the zodiacal constellations are seen and perceived as they are. Secondarily, if we were outside of the solar system looking back toward the Earth, we would not see these constellations at all. We might see aspects of them again within a different configuration or placed, they would definitely be placed differently or look different from that vast vantage point of outside the solar system, because all of the component parts of the constellations, be they stars, nebulae, galaxies, etc., would be within the context of the whole of cosmos. So from both points of view, the zodiac is fundamentally an illusion. Now, again, this is a point of importance from the point of view of the macrocosmic and more true point of view of esoteric astrology. Yet, human beings function under the illusion and delusion of duality. Our focus is fundamentally one of our personality nature and its appetites, its happiness, its ease, its comfort. And so, since that is the driving factor for almost 100% of humanity, then this vantage point or view, illusory or not, of the zodiac is because of our collective thought form and how energy follows thought. It is an operative one for us. Now, having said all of that, each of the constellations, though, is created and comprised of, in some cases, vast beings. As an example, if we take the constellation of Taurus, and we will see an image of it coming up, if we take the constellation of Taurus, one of the great stars within it is Aldebaran. Aldebaran is a red dwarf star. That's why it's red. That means that it's been around for a very long time. It also exudes or exerts a certain influence through the entirety of the constellation of Taurus. But also within the constellation of Taurus is the seven sisters of the seven Pleiades. They appear as seven single dots to our naked eye. So they appear as seven small stars. But they are not. They are a collection of nebulae and stars at different distances from the Earth. But simply because of how we are looking from our Earth out to the Pleiades, they look like they belong together. So it is this idea of the coordination of stunning beings that are behind stars, nebulae, in some cases galaxies, that are, again, from the vantage point of the Earth, seem like little dots of light, but are not, as the Hubble, the Hubble has helped us see that more correctly. And the same is so here regarding the constellations as we see them from the Earth. So here is an example. Here's the Pleiades. The Crab Nebula is right here, just within Taurus. This is his horns. This is the eye of the bull. Aldebaran is the eye of the bull. The Pleiades are in the bull's shoulder. These are his front paws or front legs. So here the idea is that there's an orchestration, a coordination of energies of these vast, vast beings that is going on and that lies behind the energy in any of the signs. The divine triplicity demonstrates in many ways. Father, Son, Holy Ghost, or Holy Spirit is a Christian way, as an example. And when we look at astrology, one of the ways that that threefoldness plays out is in the three crosses of cardinal, fixed, and mutable. We will take up the detail as we learn esoteric astrology, the detail that is necessary, not the fullness of the detail, just what is necessary to look at the chart with, again, this bigger picture behind us. So you have this slide. You can read this slide at your leisure. Similarly, so the four elements. The four elements are themselves components of our consciousness and awareness, just as they are qualities of matter. But in addition to that, the preponderance or lack of any element within our chart is saying something. Now, in traditional astrology, it's saying something as well, and we've come to understand what that is through the first class. But when we add esoteric astrology onto this, then what we want to understand is that if there is preponderance or a dominance of a particular element, it is saying that that human being has used that element and whatever it represents from a consciousness or being point of view, has used that in many lifetimes. And so it is integrated into their consciousness. And therefore it is accessible, readily accessible to be put into service to others. And thus would that not only assist others, but it would also foster the spiritual path of that person, that spiritual evolution of that person. If there is a lack of a particular element, that lack is not an overall lack. It's not a lack in the consciousness stream. It does not signal that. What it instead signals is that the higher nature, soul, spirit, whatever terms someone wants to use, has chosen for reasons of this lifetime and the karma of this lifetime, the responsibilities of this lifetime, the focus of the lifetime, the higher nature has chosen to put that particular element in abeyance. And in that way, either the person will have to learn how to access it, because again, it is within the totality of the consciousness stream. But it might be that that person has negative karma to work out that's associated with that element. And so to have ease with that element would not foster the rectification of negative karma. And so to put it into abeyance means that ease is not available, and therefore a habit maybe that brings about negative karma also is not going to easily happen. So I think this all makes sense for us, and we want to understand the larger reasons why our horoscope, our birth chart, has the configurations in it that it does, the aspects. Also, why certain elements are stronger than others, and what is, from a consciousness evolution point of view, what all of that is reporting. The Master Decay says a couple of further very important statements that again are part of the fundamental and categorical shift that esoteric astrology is offering. He tells us that the moon is a dead planet, that unto itself it emanates no energy. Now, we can have all kinds of discussions around that, and those would be healthy conversations. What he offers is that the moon veils two possible hidden planets. One we have come to now know, and it is Uranus. That is to say, it's been discovered, quote unquote, by science back in the 1700s. So that's one of the ones that's veiled. But one that has not been yet acknowledged by the scientific community is the planet of Vulcan. And when we take up Vulcan in the first session of the actual online class, it will be explained that there's tremendous scientific evidence to support it being acknowledged. And we will also talk about the reasons why it has not been acknowledged yet. So what esoteric astrology then is offering, what the Master Decay is offering, is that the moon, everyone's moon in their chart, that the moon is got a lot more going on behind it than simply our automatic tendencies, our comforts, our childhood, or our past. All of that still applies. The traditional meanings still apply. But that there's another whole area to explore that the moon is also reporting. He furthermore says that the sun sign, is the present problem. And with this, he's speaking of how the sun sign is reporting an established kind of quality or tempo or pace to the personality life, that we have the sun sign that we do because there's an ease to it in some regard. So both the moon and the sun then in esoteric astrology take on the quality of ease. They each do it differently, but they have that, again, that personal preference, and kind of a comfort that goes with them. So we want to understand how that can be not to the betterment or not to the evolution of the person. If we are at comfort or at ease with the sun and the moon qualities, then we won't stretch. We won't stretch much. We won't evolve much. We'll stay kind of in a status quo. Then furthermore, the ascendant or the rising sign is indicating the life that is intended by the higher nature. It is a stretch. It is where the emphasis of newness, freshness, again, evolution, maturing is to be found. And then in the esoteric astrology interpretation of one's birth chart, one would look at the various aspects to the ascendant to see what is helping the ascendant move us in the direction of growth, mature us along the spiritual path, and we would also look for what are the hindrances indicated by the relationship to the ascendant. And then the last thing to take up briefly in preparation for the class is that in esoteric astrology, there are 3 levels of rulership. Of course, the first one is the traditional or exoteric level, if you will. We all know them. We've learned them in traditional astrology. We've used them in traditional astrology. All that's been talked about in that education of ourselves, it applies. End of story. We want to remind ourselves that the traditional rulers comprised only the 7 inner planets until the 1770s, when Uranus was discovered, and that was with the use of a telescope. And then since then, of course, Uranus, then Neptune, and then Pluto. So just that fact that the only with the naked eye, where the planets that could be seen with the naked eye, applied to the various zodiacal signs. So again, we almost have this illusion upon illusion, if you will. And that could be spoken of in 2 ways. The illusion of the ecliptic, i.e. the zodiac, and the path of the sun through the zodiac. That's an illusion, fundamentally. We also had that by only using the planets that could be seen visibly with the naked eye, that provided its own, if you will, illusion, because there's so much more to everything and everyone than what can be seen with the naked eye. But we could also add that, is it a further illusion to add, now that we've discovered, quote unquote, that is to say, to put the words discover, 3 additional planets over the last 250 years, and to then, with some intuition and yet some arbitrary designation, put them to certain signs. Is that also part of the illusion? And the reason to put that out as a question, or to remind ourselves about this illusory nature, is because, again, fundamentally, a human being is predisposed and culturally fostered to look at themselves as what appears in the mirror and who gets up and goes to work every day And who is going to, put food in their stomach every day? And yet there is so much more to a human being, just like there is so much more to any of the esoteric sciences, including esoteric astrology. The second level of rulership is the esoteric. The word esoteric, as you might know, means that which is unknown, unrecognized, and unnoticed. Once it is known, that information then becomes exoteric. It is no longer esoteric. Esoteric does not mean arcane. It does not mean for the select few. It simply means that it is currently unknown by whoever is using the term. And so even with the term esoteric astrology, when the Master DK gave the book Esoteric Astrology, the information in it was unknown to any astrologer. Now that it is being taught and fostered, and has been for almost 100 years, by a select few astrologers, the information is becoming less esoteric, but now the use of the term esoteric is being used to mean the inner workings, the unrecognized or unnoticed energetic workings. So the information is becoming more known. Still, people are defaulting to, and most astrologers are defaulting to, the traditional types of information within astrology, and not trying to notice or recognize the awareness, the spiritual beingness, the spiritual path, qualifications, if you will, that esoteric astrology provides that are active in your chart and in your life. The third level of planetary rulership is hierarchical. If a person has an esoteric ruler or a hierarchical ruler in their chart, both of them are pointing to a demonstration of more of the span or the spectrum of themselves in their fuller nature, in their fuller beingness, that is, in fact, available to that person. It is accessible. We want to come to know these things because, again, we are evolving human beings, and most of the circumstances in our life are in our life in order to foster actually spiritual growth, not just personality growth. So when we learn to look at the chart, looking for these additional rulers and how they are qualifying our birth chart and qualifying our life, this is very worthwhile information to know, and worthwhile information to try to cultivate as well within ourselves. And so if you have the book Astrology Illumined, and if you're going to do the class, I know that you do, use it and look at your birth chart, see on if you have rulerships on any of the particular levels, including traditional. But now start to expand the scope and the range of the planet and your understanding, and start to just ponder, what does that mean for you to add these additional layers of meaning and vibration and quality? It's simply a contemplation, but it's a good start for us before we have the class. Thank you. Have fun with it.